Hey, folks, this is the Road to Recovery podcast with Mike, and he has a very special guest here today that he will introduce. Mike, you have the ball, sir.
Thank you, Thaddeus. Thanks for the introduction. And yes, I do have a special guest today. And for those of you who have been listening to the Road to Recovery, it's going to be a little bit different. You know, all the people that have been coming on involved have been involved in recovery for two-legged animals, men and women, that have been suffering from substance abuse or involved with helping people with substance abuse. Uh, the last guest you heard last week is part of the S.M.A.R.T program out at the jail and helping people in recovery out there. And my guest today, Caorline Johnson, is part of an organization that she founded called S.M.A.R.T, and I'll let her deal with the acronyms. I don't do acronyms very well, which is helping four-legged peoples, or animals, mostly dogs, in recovery. So welcome, Caorline. Thank you for joining us. Glad you were able to be here and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, how you got involved, what's the background, the history, and where you are. I was privileged to hear you speak about a week or two ago at another meeting, and I said, you know, this is a great thing, and more people in the community need to hear about it. So, your shot.
Absolutely.
Talk
Thank
us
you for
about who you are, why you are, what you're doing, where you came from.
awesome. Thank you for having us. I appreciate you having me here to fill you in about S.M.A.R.T. S.M.A.R.T stands for Saving Missing Animals Response Team of Flagler County. We have been we started the business just over two years ago, the nonprofit. I spent roughly 8 years as a volunteer running a lost pet page locally, doing volunteer work for Flagler Humane Society before branching off on my own to focus on more of the dumped and abused animals that really need us, primarily dogs, even though here and there we do help with cats. But so yeah, mostly abused dogs come from very, very sad situations, animal control cases, sheriff's department cases, and typical chained up and left behind dogs or dumped in woods. We use other dogs to go try to earn the trust of a dog because they trust an abused dog or trust a dog before they will people. So sometimes we'll use a dog like Otis or another submissive dog to try to go out and earn their trust. Other times we'll use traps. We have humane traps that will set up, use cameras to watch it, like trail cams, just to set up if a dog is dumped and they're too fearful to come near people or dogs. We'll kind of track them, get sightings and track them and get them safe.
That's incredible. This sounds very involved, too. Where I moved down here 18 years ago from Rhode Island, there was a lady in our little community that had your heart. And what she did, particularly with dogs that were tied up and chained up outside, not necessarily running loose, but she couldn't stand to see dogs that chained outside constantly 24/7. You know, that's not a pet.
Absolutely.
And she would hire young men to go out and steal those dogs from their current owners and bring them and find foster homes and new homes for them where they'd be cared for as a pet.
Absolutely. And it's kind of in line with what we do. We use foster homes. We don't have a facility, so we're relying on our community to step up and help us. The more foster families we have that'll open their home, the more we can save. Most of these dogs haven't had love before. They don't know nurturing. They're very grateful when they first get to realize what being safe and loved is really all about. So we have a pretty good history of, rehabbing these dogs and seeing them be very loving and nurturing and no aggression. We have had a few, but we send them out to training programs. I try to stick with being 100% against euthanasia. If we can rehab a dog between medical issues or behavior, I'd rather do that. Comes with a high cost, but their lives are worth it. So
It blew my mind away with the amount of money that you spend. And it's all based on donations and stuff that you have to get from the community to help and save these animals. I mean, you're not talking just a few $100 here and there.
No.
You're talking sometime up into the thousands,
yes.
depending on how bad the dog's been treated and how long it's been left out and that kind of stuff. and the success rate says something about our community too, because they
Absolutely.
do come to your aid and your help. But I thought it was important to the community to know more about it, so when they hear about these things, they'll know what it is, and if it's something that their heart drives, to help you out in that fashion, whether it's becoming a foster home, whether it's donating, whatever your needs are,
Absolutely.
that the more people in the community know about it, the same as we try to get the information out in our community about people that are suffering from substance abuse and are in the recovery world, trying to get people to help them, to come to their aid,
Hmm.
to use their own giftings and whatever the needs are that we find in our community. So it's it's incredible.
It is. It's very costly. I mean, the neglect of an animal has a much higher cost to us than taking in an animal that has been, if there's a family pet that just they've fell on hard times and they can't take care of it or going through a divorce, losing their home, and they need to surrender. If the dog has been vetted properly and just normal, taken care of, seeing a vet for shots and vaccines and normal heartworm prevention monthly, it makes it easier for us. But we focus on the harder cases, the cases like a owner surrender for a happy, healthy dog going into a shelter environment. They can go in and out pretty fast and get adopted pretty fast. An abused dog or a dumped dog has a lot of emotional scarring, just like we would if we were abused,
Mm-hmm.
or dumped or beaten. So there's the baggage that comes along with it, and part of that baggage is fixing up the medical. One of the biggest issues is the heartworm disease.
Hmm.
We're in a state that is flea and mosquito driven out, and when they're living outside, unfortunately, not being on heartworm prevention monthly, a monthly pill that might cost you $25 leads to heartworm disease, which is just comes from a mosquito bite. So a mosquito bite gives them heartworms, which can ultimately give them heart failure and cause them to suffer. We treat that. It runs us usually in the $2,000 range per dog to treat. Very brutal on the dog. It's the medication and the treatment is painful and brutal on them. And I think sometimes just education and knowing that there's a monthly pill for 20-25 bucks, that there's organizations that even if you are struggling financially and can't afford that and you have a few dogs, um, myself, we always have donated meds like that we can pass on to another family that needs it. But it saves a dog from suffering that essentially an organization like us or another rescue or shelter has to kind of pick up the pieces for.
Mm-hmm.
Very costly. And that doesn't include our spaying and neutering, the vaccines, the deworming. um, $2,000 for heartworm. By the time we finish all the vetting, we're up to about 3,000 per dog. It's a lot of money when you're relying on just donations.
Yeah. And you recently picked up 6 dogs.
Yes.
That
Yes.
I was reading about that. I mean, that's six
Yes.
times all that because those dogs seemed like they were in real bad shape.
So that's 6 dogs we got called from a animal control organization out by Jacksonville. Very small county out there, Baker County. They didn't have a rescue out there or shelter that had space because every shelter and rescue is crowded right now, unfortunately. So they reached out asking if we had space, showed me pictures of one. I went out there with the intent of getting one, but I came back with 6. Came back with 6, all tested heartworm positive. This family um, goes to, of course, what you do, Mike. It's addiction that led this family to, unfortunately, neglecting their dogs. The husband died of a drug overdose in the woods where these poor dogs were chained up, and the wife moved out and left the dogs chained up and in crates. One of them got so skinny that she broke loose. Diamond, a white pitty, she broke loose because the chain that she was on to a tree got so skinny around her neck that she was able to slip off. Essentially, that led the sheriff's department to get a call and find the other dogs. So we took in 6. 2 others were deceased in a crate from starvation. And like I said, those 6 dogs are all heartworm positive, all need spay, neuter, and vaccines. None had any vetting ever in their life, probably. So we're looking at roughly $2,700 per dog to vet them. That does, and that's just basics. That doesn't include like some of the skin issues they have from being in the woods, things like that. So
Mm.
a big bill.
Incredible, incredible task that you've taken on. And again, I don't know how well you've done with the six so far as donations, but what I've heard about you in the past, people have stepped up. A lot of animal lovers out there that when they can will help you.
Absolutely.
And you've been very good at doing your fundraisers. You got an incredible group that help you.
Yes.
If I could steal some of them for mine, I would. So be careful.
We can share.
Yeah. Matter of fact, one of the leading people in our group is who introduced me to you, for not physically, but about who you are years ago, before you got in your own business. Renee
Okay.
DeAngelis.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Renee is one of our major members of the Drug War Foundation. She's our top
You are
administrator.
very well.
Yep. So she spoke very highly of this lady, and then we started seeing you at First Friday. Renee said, "That's who it was." Okay. And then I've met you at a business networking meeting to hear what you've been doing. I said, it'd be good to help her out where we can, and by getting this word out, hopefully it'll help get you some more help that you need.
Absolutely.
And just shows that, if we're a nonprofit in our community and we need what you need, we need donations, we need money, but we also need to help each other as nonprofits.
Absolutely.
And so this is one of the steps that we take. We partner with a couple of other nonprofits in our community. We help each other wherever we can. This is an unusual partnership because all our other partnerships deal with two-legged animals and not four-legged animals. But why not? Why not?
Well, it correlates very well to me because even in recovery, one of the things I learned, my background came from working in a prison and in a psychiatric hospital. The adults in the adult unit had dual diagnosis, mental and needed to rehab, going through addiction issues. And the two go hand in hand. Then the teenagers, the same thing. They came from families and homes with addiction issues and mental health issues, leading them to now commit a crime that leads them to sometimes 20, 30 years in prison. So animals have a way of bringing nurturing and love to people and healing. So throughout the process of recovery, I'm a big advocate, huge advocate of adopting a pet because a dog can bring you, as you know, with Otis is in training to be a therapy dog. They bring love, they bring joy. When he comes out to meetings with us, there's some people that pull me aside and say, when he comes out to our meetings on Thursday mornings, some of the people have pulled me aside or messaged me later and said, I just went through a really rough week, or just lost a friend of mine, or somebody has cancer, and Otis came up and gave me the best little hug this morning, and it changed my day. And so I think for people in recovery in general, it's adopting a pet can be life changing for them. So even in the future, if there's something we can do that helps with your program, and people you see that you feel like are ready to adopt and at a good place, I think it adds a sense of responsibility for another being that has been abused, that essentially is going through that same recovery process.
Yeah, and that's what kind of hit me. I said, okay, how do I justify bringing animal rescue into this recovery program? But it hit me the same way. I said, it isn't really different.
No.
They can work well together. It is about recovering.
Yes.
And those in recovery can benefit, like you said. Everybody in the recovery program, I think through the court program, has to do community service hours.
Right.
Many of those community service hours are done at the Humane Society because we have people in the program that love animals, and they can go out there and get the hours they need. A young fellow called me last week and said, "Where can I get some recovery hour, some community service hours?" I said, "Well, you can go to the food pantry, you can go out to the Humane Society. I love animals." I said, "The job they're going to give you is not fun." I said, "I don't mind picking up poop. I just love the animals."
Yeah.
So there is something there. And when they do those kinds of community service hours, it means more than just doing the hours.
Absolutely.
When they're actually seeing results, seeing helping, that helps them in their own recovery. So maybe some of them, maybe we can get hooked up with you if you need some. They can't bring them home, but maybe there's stuff they might be able to help you in some fashion At some
Absolutely.
point in time, we get you approved by the probation department for community service to the drug court. Could be a really good positive thing for both you and for them, for the ones that need it.
Well, that would be great for us because we do adoption events and they're off-site since we
Yep.
don't have a facility. Like you said, First Friday, we set up at the local pet stores, Tractor Supply, PetSmart, places like that to do adoptions. So if we're out there for 3, 4, 5 hours and everyone's volunteers, including myself, we have one thing I'll back up to. We have no paid salaries. Everybody is volunteer basis.
Yep.
So we rely strictly on volunteers. So having them come out and help us at events would be amazing.
Well, when we finish up today, I'll give you the name of the person to contact at the probation department and see what it needs to get so we
Okay.
can get approved to do that.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. I mean, right there and then, this has real been a benefit to our conversation for both of us at this point. Because I've seen the benefit and what animals have done to change the situation in a very positive manner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's it can be really cool, and we see them now bringing animals into the hospitals for
Yes.
people. They are bringing them into some jails. Same thing. I don't know if that'd be something we could work on in the future, but yeah, it changes attitudes.
It does.
And when a dog comes up to you loving, Otis is really good at that. He
He's
can
a
sucker
star.
them all in.
He's a star. He's become a little superstar.
Yeah.
Just don't distract him with food.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So what drove you to start this? I mean, you came from what you said, working in the jails, doing this, doing that. What drove you into the world of four legs?
So after a car accident, I couldn't go back to work anymore. Had a lot of injuries, almost died from a car accident, a lot of surgeries. So just all of the risks that came associated with working and needing to restrain if you work in a jail or a psychiatric hospital, which physically I'm not able to do anymore. So they put me out on early retirement and leave, disability, everything you can imagine in my young 20s, which was not very nice for me. But the cold weather in New York had a toll on my arthritis. So I decided to try Florida. I had family that moved down, so I came down to visit. Decided Palm Coast would be it for me. So I came down, and I think after about 6 months, just boredom of going from working 60, 70 hours a week to just nothing. So I started helping out on a lost pet page at the time. Helping out on the lost pet page is actually what led me to Renee. A lot of lost dogs here. Not a lot. I guess I would say maybe 2 or 3 a week back then because our population wasn't where it is now. But I had no idea what I was doing. I just learned as I went along. And I think just being an animal lover, dogs sense that. So like Renee's case, Renee had a dog there that got loose. I think it was her daughter's dog at the time, and she had the dog at her house. Typical hound that will use his nose and run. And I knew him very well, Buck. When I volunteered for the Humane Society, he was one of the dogs we got adopted there. So knew him very well, and I knew he was a runner. And I also know that he does not like crates, so he would not go in a trap. So it took 6 weeks of going every day to feed him and every day with my Cocker Spaniel to play with him. But if he saw a leash, all bets were off. So it just slowly got me into running the lost pet page. I mean, Buck was an extreme case. Took us 6 weeks to finally get him safe. When he decided, he just came over and laid his head on my chest and let me leash him after 6 weeks. But yeah, so 6 weeks of running, he wasn't going for it. He was right in front of his house in a wooded lot. He just wasn't ready to go back in yet. So 6 weeks of that, it just led me to really wanting to help other people. So I started running the Lost Pet page. A lot of those dogs went from 2, 3 a week to, as our community grew, it was 7, 8 a week. We're up to probably 10 or 12 dogs a day right now on the Lost Pet page that are loose. So just the transition of helping people into helping the dogs. A lot of those dogs that were reported lost started being dumped. sometimes family moving, leaving them behind. We have the unfortunate cases of those. How do you know? Because sometimes it's caught on camera. Um, Sometimes neighbors can confirm that this dog belonged to this house and they just moved out. You find the dog laying at their front door for a week. So it just, over the years, Michael, just learning, the in and outs of it, and kind of every day now I still learn more about dogs because they're
Mm-hmm.
all different personalities.
Yep.
But the abused ones touch my heart more. I think it's what I love. My father actually died in a car accident going to get drugs. He had an addiction to heroin. He relapsed after 15 years.
Well,
So that's what led me to helping people and working in rehabs. Um, Switching gears after my accident, it's, helping with the lost pets kind of led me into helping with the dogs that are abused, because it's kind of essentially what I love to do. So,
yeah. Well, it's kind of like our family. For the longest time, any pet that we've got has been a rescue of some sort, whether we went through a pound or humane society or
right.
something at that time. Since we moved here, we've had three or four cats that we rescued, and out of the three of them, out of the three, one we know was a dump. Okay, two of them we know they were catch, neuter, and returns,
Right.
because they had their ears clipped. And sometimes I won't talk about that program right now, but those animals out there didn't have any food. There was too many of them, and they weren't finding food that we put out in the back. And little by little, we get them into the house,
Right.
then get them to a vet for checkups. And once that happened, they wouldn't leave again. So we ended up with three of those. Little by little bit over the years, they've all passed away. And we've had, since we moved here, I think 2 or 3 rescue dogs that we've done. Right now we're without, but we're thinking about what we're going to do in the near future. And yeah, and I've never been, wherever I've lived, seen this amount.
Yeah.
It's wild.
For a small community, we have way too many. Way too many.
I don't understand it. I can understand how a dog might escape out the door once in a while. But if they're escapers, you need to keep the collar on with their tags. You need to make sure they're chipped so they can get back. And we know there are some escapers that, when we put our fence in our backyard, we went down below the fence line just in case, because we didn't know if our dog would dig down.
Oh, yeah.
And had to put other stuff, because the fencing was like this close, but some of the dogs, so we ended up having to put that other stuff on the outside just to make sure the dog wouldn't escape. And you just don't know. But I see them all the time.
A lot of them are repeats. You try to educate people and offer suggestions. I mean, there's one of my fosters. I mean, she has dogs. She has different size dogs. She fosters a lot for us. Some are small, 10 pounds, and some are up to 70, 80 pounds. As you're trying to hold back a 70-pound from going out the door, the little one scoots through your legs.
Scoot underneath you.
So, I mean, there's gates, the 3 and 4 panel gates that go at front doors that you can get to fit any doorway, so that you have the space to come in and out, open the door, put down a few bags, and you have a safety area, So I think if people just take the suggestions and use those helpful hints.
You weren't going to use common sense, were you? Because we know that's not existent anymore.
That's why I changed it. Good catch. Common sense, but just, you have people offering you tips that, we're seeing this every day. We're seeing what is helpful for the people that have escape artists. Before you find your dog on the side of the road hit by a car, let's fix the issue.
Yep.
And I say that because after the hurricane, people were putting their dog out in the fenced yard without checking for broken fence, and we had the unfortunate task of picking up 3 dogs hit by cars and deceased.
And think about this too. It's not only that dog is dying, okay? Think about the driver that hit that dog. With any kind of heart, that's going to hit them.
Absolutely.
It just, You got to think long range. You got to
Yeah.
think outside your normal thing. You don't want to be the destroyer.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't want to be the one responsible for letting that animal go loose. And
It's
knowing
heartbreaking.
who your what your animal is, who it is an
Hmm.
important part of how you guard them.
Absolutely. It's heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking on rescuers. I mean, I see a lot of the volunteers that go out and help me, and even on the Lost Pet page, we have roughly 15,000 Flagler County members on that page. If there's a lost dog, people are normally jumping in their cars to go help. It just tears out the heart of an animal lover to stop and see this dog deceased in the road. So let's fix it before it
Yeah.
continues.
It is. It's terrible. Anything you'd like to leave the public with? Do you have anything special events coming up that they should know? This just so you know, this broadcast will go out in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Typically when we do that. So I try to, in case I can't record, try to get a couple into the pipeline. So just in case they're ready, and I think this one's scheduled for about 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Is there anything coming up that they should be aware about? Are you going to be at First Friday, the first Friday in December?
We will be at First Friday, and then we do have a few different Saturdays. They can follow me on Facebook or look online and see our adoption event days. We'll be doing PetSmart a few Saturdays throughout the rest of the year. Events we're finished with for the year. I get tired of begging and pleading, so I think people for the holidays just really need to focus on their families.
So how's the best way of contacting you? What's your Facebook page called? How would they look you up?
Our Facebook page is S.M.A.R.T of Flagler County, or you can look up Saving Missing Animals Response Team. But S.M.A.R.T of Flagler County brings it up on Facebook. And our website is smartflagler.com. And there are links on there that will take you to all of our social media pages as well. There's links on there to donate, one-time donations set up for recurring monthly donations. It all goes to our animals. Every bit of it. There's no, like I said, no paid salaries. Everything goes to help our animals.
Excellent. I think this has been a very good. I'm happy that we've been trying to get you here for a while,
Yes.
and I hope you found this comfortable enough so that sometime in the future you'll come back and give us some updates on
Absolutely.
what's going on out there in the world of helping animals out there. So, again, I want to thank you. This is Mike Feldbauer from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation. Welcome you to the road to recovery. And this week, it's the road to both humans, 2 legs, and dogs, 4 legs, to recovery. We thank you for being here. If you need to reach me, if you have any interest in being helpful to the Drug Court Foundation, you can reach me at area code 401-864-6997 or mfeldbauer, Feldbauer @gmail.com. And if you're a local Flagler business, here's something we have for you. We have the Club 100. We're looking for 100 local businesses to commit to either $10 a month or $120 a year for our budgeting, so we don't have to go out and do a lot of heavy fundraising. Small amount, but big help. Thank you very much for spending time here on the road to recovery.
So one thing too for the businesses out there, if you are donating to the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, you can also be a show sponsor here at the studio where we'll shout out your business and so on so that people see your information, they know how to get in contact with you, and it looks good. So it's also a 501(c), so it's a nonprofit. But folks, make sure you guys connect with the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation and also S.M.A.R.T, helping humans, helping animals. You know, both are linked, like the conversation we had. They're linked. A lot of times the people who are addicted to drugs, they're abandoning their animals, or maybe they can't take care of them properly. So make sure you guys get involved to help the effort. But again, this has been the Road to Recovery podcast, which is filmed here at the Flagler Voice podcast studio. Again, I say this all the time, folks. This is your space. Come in here, shout out your business, maybe your ideas. Maybe you're a political candidate that wants to connect directly to your constituents. All that's possible here. We have call-in features. Make it a smooth process. Again, Road to Recovery podcast here at the Flagler Voice Podcast Studio. See you next time.
Very nice. Very nice.
That could be something that you look forward